Noble is the bad guy of HYROX. I think you're the good guy of HYROX.
Yeah.
The job. I'm a solicitor, but right now I'm on a sabbatical to focus entirely on HYROX. And I'm someone that likes to have goals and kind of targets and things to work towards. And I've always been like that from a career perspective. And that's no different with HYROX. I was a back row player, so I used to anywhere in the back row. So, but then it was accumulation of kind of several sort of, I suppose you'd call them moderate injuries, 3 or 4 of them within like a 2-year period. Yeah, and that I kind of lost my identity. So crossing the line was just a bit more like, yeah, good job, you've made yourself. And David Beckham was one of their players at the time. So I do remember
I've got
him.
my own David Beckham story actually as well. I used to wear.
You know, the funniest thing is I actually have a David Beckham story.
Oh yeah. And through that, he set up a charity and foundation that works with injured people.
I think Area 51's on the way out to Vegas from that direction, isn't it? You might be able to stop off all the petrol stations. They sell little mini aliens. And we'll get Harry into the room here now. Harry, you're coming in. Don't you worry. I've got you.
Hi, Harry.
We have him back. We have Harry back. Let's have a look. Oh, look at
There he is. Oh, now we can see you.
Is that better?
Much better.
Perfect. You're not getting loads of background noise, are you?
No.
Okay, sweet. Good.
Yeah. No, that's 10 out of 10. How are you, Harry?
Yeah, good, thanks. Over here now, so it's good to be in America.
What time did the wheels touch down last night?
Not too bad. It was kind of like 4:30 in the afternoon. We were a little bit delayed because of the storm, but not too bad. Then settled in, got like a pretty good night's sleep actually. So like managed to stay awake on the flight and then kind of fall asleep at like a reasonable time, and then just a little bit early this morning, but in a couple of days and I'll be over that. So yeah. All good.
Okay. And have you brought much of a support crew with you to Vegas?
Just me and my girlfriend Hannah at the moment. And I'm in San Diego right now. So we flew here to have like a couple of days here. Just the flights were cheaper, and I've got some friends that live here as well, which is cool. And then we're going to drive over to Vegas in a couple of days' time, because it's only like 4 hours, so it's not too bad.
Oh, that's cool. I think Area 51's on the way out to Vegas from that direction, isn't it? You might be able to stop off all the petrol stations. They sell little mini aliens and stuff. Maybe mini tortoises as well, if you want to get a...
Yeah. I'd definitely be up for that. I'll be up for seeing some wildlife, and yeah, if it's a tortoise, then that's like all-time favorite. So
well, absolutely lovely to meet you. And listen, I can't believe you came on the pod literally within, like, I don't know whether it's 12 hours, 10 hours of touching down. So I really, really appreciate it. We're really, really excited for this week. As a part of the Las Vegas Major Week, we're doing a bit of a build-up. So we're releasing 3 episodes this week as opposed to our normal 1. So to build some hype, to build some energy behind it. And obviously you got the call up for Vegas yourself. How are you feeling about the opportunity to race this week?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I got the call up. Obviously, it's a roll down place, so I didn't know that I was going to be going for definite. I found out about a week and a half ago now. So I've had a little bit of time to sort of adjust things, because I was meant to race today in Manchester, but with it being like home city, it's just kind of too good to pass up on. But not that now. So yeah, feel good about it. Like, the getting to the major was the thing that I was finding more stressful this season, because it happened quite fast last year. I got a couple of invites that I'd turned down as well, and then I think I assumed that I'd get an invite earlier this year, and that didn't quite happen. So that was becoming a bit more of a drama than actually getting here. But now I'm here, I just feel like great. Like I'm going out there to race, level playing field. You know, let's go and have a crack at it. Like, just looking forward to it.
That's cool. That's awesome. Lily, do you want to kick things off with Harry, so we can get a better understanding of who Harry is, and then explain the structure a little bit of how we work?
Yeah, sure. So why don't you give the listeners maybe a little rundown about yourself? Like, we often say, how would you describe yourself, or what would you expect other people to describe you as in a short story, like a little few sentences?
Yeah, sure. I hope how I would describe myself is the same as what other people would describe me, but let's see. So as a job, I'm a solicitor by trade, but right now I'm on a sabbatical to focus entirely on HYROX, and that's going to end at the end of this year. So that's been, I suppose, in terms of how I describe myself, I'd probably say I'm someone that likes to have goals and kind of targets and things to work towards, and I've always been like that from a career perspective, and that's no different with HYROX. I came to HYROX quite late, having done rugby as my main sport, and I'm just like a real lover of all things sporting. So if it wasn't HYROX, I'd be playing tennis or doing CrossFit or doing something else to kind of fill that void. It's just that I found something that I absolutely love, and I love the training and the competing, and it's great. And it fits around my career a bit better than a team sport, which would be really hard to kind of get to training on time and get to all the matches and things. So yeah, I'd say probably how I describe myself overall is just like a guy who loves sport, like doesn't take himself too seriously, but I do like to have kind of hard goals and things I'm working towards, whatever thing that is, whether it's career, sport, or like hobbies.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of, I don't like to compare people, but there's a lot of similarities between your story and Sean Noble's story, actually, who was a solicitor. He's taking a sabbatical to go all in on HYROX right now. Did he say he's taking a sabbatical, or the company?
I think he's going to.
The company's to give him one. So, and Sean's racing in Las Vegas as well. So I'm sure you guys will share a few beers and share similar war stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it'd be good to catch up with it because I didn't know he was in the profession. So yeah, it'd be cool to chat some law things.
And Harry, have you seen any of our podcasts before? Do you know how our sort of structure works?
Yeah, I've watched a couple of them. I was saying to Ryan, I've kind of sort of seen clips and stuff, and then kind of watched them following that. So I've seen some of the stuff with James Kelly that you guys did, and some of the stuff as well with a couple of the other athletes. So yeah,
cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump in. As you've seen with James and a few of the other athletes, is we try and approach things from slightly different angles to truly understand, not truly understand, but get a below the surface understanding of who you are beyond the athlete. Of course, athlete will run through a constant theme of your life, and we'll have to touch on those things. But we'd like to get your thoughts and opinions and takes and some stories. And the reason that we want those things is not because it's great to market you with and to market the podcast with. It's also so as if you do go on and go fully professional in the sport and looking to build a business, the people can actually buy into your story a little bit more rather than just talking about results and performances and so on and so forth. That's kind of the concept. So we're going to start off with we generally have a bit of a loosener, a bit of a fun one to start off with. So I'm going to test your North England Northern knowledge, Harry, to begin with, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. I hope I do well on this.
Harry, can I ask a question just before we jump into this? Actually, on High Result, they've got the Aussie flag or New Zealand flag against your name. Do you know why that is?
No, that's definitely not right. I'm bog standard British, so yeah.
Okay, cool. That threw a spanner in the works in my research as I began searching for Harry Thompsons in New Zealand. But let's get that sorted, HYROX. Let's get the man as British flag up. Okay, so north of England, pub quiz style. So we've got a few different things from the north of England. The Battle of the Roses in the north of England, is between Lancashire and Yorkshire, right? You're Lancashire.
Yeah.
You were born in Lancashire. Okay, so I want you to tell me whether these things were native to Lancashire or native to Yorkshire to see how truly northern and truly a white rose. Are you a white rose? Is that what it is? Or is Yorkshire white rose?
I think so, yes.
Good start.
Red rose for Lancashire, I think.
And a white rose for Yorkshire. Okay, cool. Okay, let's start. Bronte sisters, Yorkshire or Lancashire?
Lancashire.
Incorrect. They were from Yorkshire. Absolutely. Yeah, so 0 out of 1. Okay, the UK's first canal.
Bridgewater Canal, so Lancashire.
Correct, yes. The world's oldest football club.
Oh. I want to say it might be Leeds, maybe Yorkshire.
Correct. Rhubarb, the native plant of one of those regions. Which one is it?
We have some at my parents' house, so I'm going to say Lancashire.
It's
Yorkshire. That's
Yorkshire.
what it started. Oh, no.
It's Yorkshire. Okay, atomic theory.
Lancashire.
Correct. Marks and Spencer.
Lancashire.
Incorrect. Yorkshire. Rolls Royce.
Oh. I think they're near Cheshire now, so maybe Lancashire.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cluedo, the good old board game.
Oh, that's a great game. I would have put that as a London thing, but okay, I'm gonna go Lancashire.
It was a board game club in Leeds in Yorkshire. All right, cool. Switching things up, we're going to come at you from a slightly different angle now. I think you've done subpar on that, Harry. I think
you're
like
a 5 out of 10 on your Northern Lancashire White Rose ability.
Well, I had no idea any of those were from the north, so I had no clue about any of them.
I know Rolls Royce was a surprise.
So, question 2 then. You are the only HYROX athlete in the Elite 15 from a competitive rugby background. We've had a few footballers on, but there's lots of transferable skills. What do you think? Do you think that rugby transfers better than football, or what are the sort of transferable skills that you have?
I think it probably does if you're a rugby player who's in like a position with a lot of running. Because some positions are less. Like, you have to move around, wherever you are. But if you're like a prop, you're basically doing a lot of scrummaging, which for those who aren't familiar with rugby, is just like just pushing basically really hard. And obviously that wouldn't be a great starting place for HYROX. But I think if you're anywhere in the kind of the sort of back row, if you're a forward into the backs, where you're going to be running a lot and sort of in like a short interval and then kind of recovery and then just constant movement, I think it probably does transfer well. And it's about the same time domain. Men's rugby match, 80 minutes, average HYROX, an hour and a half. So you're kind of around about the same sort of duration. But yeah, like obviously the upper body elements of rugby and the kind of power, not so much, but the kind of cardiovascular background, I think, helps.
Okay. And what was your position in rugby, Harry?
I was a back row player, so I used to anywhere in the back row, so either usually number 8 or 7. But I'd move around a little bit, and I grew up playing in the backs as well, and I moved into the back row when I was probably like 13, 14, and then stayed there until through to adult rugby, and then when I stopped.
Yeah, so you must have had a pretty big growth spurt around 13, 14 then for you to move into the pack. Like what height are you? You're quite a tall athlete.
Yeah, just under 6'3". So yeah, like always kind of one of the taller guys, but not the tallest in the team. So that puts you in that back row area. And then I actually ended up there because we had a couple of really good players in my like local club, and the coaches we were all in the backs at one point and trying to play fullback or centre. So the coaches were like, "Look, one of you needs to go in the forwards." So we've kind of got that. One of you can go in the backs, and so you end up doing these things not because of some grand plan or just because in your local team you want to win, and so you just sort of spread yourself around, and everyone kind of accommodates each other. Because I think if I had my rugby days again, I would have loved to have stayed in the backs. I think it actually probably suited me better than being in the forwards, because I really struggled to put size on, and so I always found I was fitter and kind of faster maybe than a lot of my competitors, but not quite big and heavy, and that actually like hurt me playing in like the north where it rains all the time. You're on a wet pitch, so your speed you can't really use your speed as well. But you are having to hit people and tackle them, and if you're not as kind of as big and strong, then actually you lose out a little bit there. So yeah, if I had it again, I'd stay in the backs if possible.
And were you normally a 6 or an 8, or did you play all 3 positions? Because obviously 6 and 7's 2 very different positions on a rugby pitch. Like which?
Yeah. My preference would probably be number 8, because then I'd do a bit more carrying, and because I had quite good acceleration, I'd get the ball out the back of the scrum or something and just go. But to be honest, I was one of those guys that was a bit of a like utility player, so I kind of I could do a bit of everything, but I probably wasn't exceptional at any one thing. And
Yeah.
so I didn't fit around to like our other players. So when I was at uni, I usually played 6 most of the time, because we had like a really exceptional guy who was 7 and another guy who was exceptional at number 8. And so it was like we wanted all 3 of us on the pitch, but I was, pretty relaxed about what number I wore on my back. It was more about just being there, being a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I seen you transitioned into 7s rugby at one point in your career, which probably speaks to your cardio and the type of rugby athlete you were. Is that where you finished your career then, in 7s, with a bit more open space to run around?
Exactly. So I actually played 7s alongside 15s, like right the way through. But it was a much smaller part of my training and kind of schedule, I suppose. A couple of tournaments a year rather than sort of every weekend for kind of 8 or 9 months. But then as I got a bit older, so once I started work, and you might have heard this from Sean, it's super incompatible working as a kind of solicitor in corporate law alongside doing any kind of sport, really, or like a lot of other hobbies. Yes, yeah. And what I was saying earlier about the team element, you just can't. I couldn't get to training on time because the training would start at sort of 6 p.m. I wouldn't leave the office most days until after 10. So you can't get there. So then you never get picked. So I found that actually 7s was a lot better because the commitment was smaller. I ended up playing for an invitational team that took players from kind of all over the Northwest. And then when we were sort of a month or 2 months out from our first tournament, we'd start training, but it would be once a week. You'd have to do all your own kind of strength and conditioning yourself. And then the training sessions were purely sort of team-based technical skill stuff. Yeah. And then you would just go straight into the competitions, and it would be maybe 4 competitions a year. It's just on the weekend, and then job done, and you can get back to work. So the kind of, for a work perspective, I could fit it in much better. Whereas when it's like every week, every weekend, it just became like really untenable. And I actually fell out of love with it because of that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about your sporting career. I seen you suffered a pretty serious, was it a leg injury, which ended your rugby career and hindered you for quite a while. I seen that went on to impact you in CrossFit with your mobility and certain movements. And then there's kind of a gap in my research, and then you pop up and you win a race in Barcelona. All those achievements, they're all well and good, but I want to understand, like, how did you live with yourself in between those two things? So you're at the top of your athletic career playing rugby. Then it was a long time before Barcelona. I'm not 100% sure what that time frame was. And how did you feel losing that part of your identity throughout that time?
Yeah, like loads to cover. But so I had my worst injury was probably when I was 18. So I came back from that. That was my knee injury. So I was just in training. Someone slipped and hit my kneecap back and across, and it fractured my femur and took a big piece of cartilage off the bone. So it's actually, that's the one that gives me the most kind of like trouble from in terms of from a kind of movement perspective. But then it was accumulation of kind of several sorts of, I suppose you'd call them moderate injuries. So not things that any one of them fully put an end to you, but just 3 or 4 of them within like a 2-year period. And that was torn hamstring, torn groin. They were like grade 2-3 tears. I did something to my ankle. I'm not sure if it was a fracture or ligament damage, but it restricts the mobility quite badly on that side, and dislocated my shoulder. And then I herniated a disc in my lower back. God. So my body was telling me to stop, and So as you say, that was a real loss of identity. So I came back from all those things, got back, I played 7s, and felt like I finished on a high. But I also knew it was time. I couldn't do it anymore, and I couldn't do it the way I wanted to. And I think I talked earlier about like having goals and targets. My target was always to play for England. Like I didn't care at what level, if it was age group or students or kind of full England, men's England. But I wanted to put on the jersey and do that, and I never quite got there. And probably wasn't quite good enough, but I also maybe didn't play my cards right at the right times, and a little bit of bad luck with some injuries. And I think when the door finally closed to kind of any sort of England representative honours was when I was sort of early 20s. And once that happened, the carrot that I'd been chasing for so long just went, and I just fell out of love with it. And that was about 2017, I think, 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
And then I did one more seventh season when I came back from some of those injuries in 2019, and then that finished around June. And then but I was already sort of quite deconditioned by that point. And then, yeah, I kind of lost my identity. So that rugby had been how I found all my friends and how I socialized with people and how I kind of disconnected from work and from the office and from being a student before that. And when that went, I think it was hard. I put on some weight. I felt really bad about myself. I was working really hard as well at the time, but maybe as a junior in law, you don't feel like you're necessarily doing that much on the jobs. You know, you're doing a lot of shadowing, a lot of kind of administrative work. And I found that quite hard as well, because you've spent years training to do, you know, all the kind of fun stuff, being in the courtroom and being with clients and advising people. And then you're actually giving no advice. You're doing lots of support roles. And that's just part of learning. But doing that at the same time as losing this other half of my identity, the kind of sports side, was really hard. And yeah, I just sort of drifted for a bit, looking at, I wanted to do something competitively in a sport context, but I didn't know what it was. And I tried a few things that I'd done in my kind of youth, so like tennis. Started playing some more tennis and seeing like, is this going to be my new thing? But I wanted something I could do for the next 20 years. I didn't want like, I'll do it for 2 years, then my body will break again, and then I'll have to go find something else.
Yeah.
And that got me into CrossFit. I decided, you know what, this is hard. I love it, but it's also really hard, and I'm actually quite bad at a lot of it. But there's loads of new skills to learn. I'm going to compete at CrossFit, and I'm going to take this, you know, as far as I can. If that's the age group CrossFit Games in 15 years' time, and I'm just building 15 years, I was like, perfect. That's giving me that carrot again.
Yeah.
And so that was why I settled on that. And then it was from that I did get into doing some CrossFit events. I had some success with those, did some team stuff, did some individual stuff. And then it was from that, I was always really good at the events that were a bit longer, that involved some element of running and more foundational movements, less kind of complexity. And that was why a friend of mine said, try HYROX. And then I tried HYROX, and that got me into it. So it was kind of a bit of a nebulous path, but it was sort of, trying to address what felt like a massive hole in my kind of life and find something to fill it. And then once I did, then just kind of following the threads until you eventually hit that one thing that, you know, sets your heart on fire.
Yeah, the shape of that question was to take us on a journey between the two peaks and right through that valley. So when you finally summited in Barcelona, like, how did you feel? You must have just felt like, I'm back, baby, or like, how did you feel? Like, because it means a lot to us, these things, you know? Like, if it's your identity, it means a lot. What did Barcelona mean to you when you like number one on the podium? I'm back.
Yeah, it did feel really good. I'll also be really honest. It also didn't feel amazing. I think because I came into Barcelona, and about 2 hours before the race, I didn't know if I was going to even do it, because I was just, so it was on a Saturday, like normal Saturday night, but I was just working crazy hours right the way through that week. We flew on the Friday night. I worked on the plane, worked in the taxi to the airport, to the hotel, sorry, and then stayed up late until kind of after, I think it was around midnight, working on my laptop while Hannah was asleep, and then fell asleep, woke up in the morning and felt obviously like death, because you've just been, had no sleep and been sat down for, you know, 14 hours a day or something crazy.
Yeah.
And we went for a little walk, came back, and I just felt really drained, and I fell asleep on the bed. And then Hannah woke me up a few hours later and was like, we've got 15 minutes till, you know, you need to go warm up if you're doing it. We were staying right by the venue, like opposite. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And walked over there, warmed up. I was in a late heat because I hadn't been like seeded into, you know, an earlier one. So I was right at the end, did the race, but because you're in like a later heat, you know, you're maybe not racing against people that are as fast. Mm-hmm. So I actually didn't know, like, where I was time wise. I just knew that I was running with people that were definitely not in my heat, because there were lots of like female athletes and things in front of me. And then I crossed the line and was just like, okay, I've done it. Like, I'm really proud of myself for finishing this thing, but I've done it. So the kind of winning side of it, I probably didn't maybe realize that until the next day, or kind of it didn't sink in. I think at the time it was sort of a feeling of pride that I'd just done the event rather than like elation that it had gone well. And then kind of once it sunk in, obviously I felt good about it. But I think it was like crossing the line was just a bit more like, good job, you've made yourself that hard. Yeah.
You know what the really funny irony of that is if you didn't have that busy week with work, you probably would have overthought your race.
Yeah.
Things might have been very different. It's just it's just life works out funny sometimes. Okay, let's go for a slightly different question, Lily. You ready?
Yeah, slightly different vibe here. So you went to school around Alderley Edge, which is apparently known as a celebrity nesting spot. Do you have any good stories or interesting interactions you had with any local stars?
Oh, well, so growing up, because I grew up around Manchester, I was a United fan because they were also very successful back then as well. So inevitably chased glory. And David Beckham was one of their players at the time. And so I do remember him being in the local supermarket and people, being like overwhelmed that he was actually, one, doing his own shopping, and two, like supermarket. So that was cool. But I was so young at the time that I can't actually really remember what he looked like or anything. But I just remember the excitement of being there. So that's probably my biggest claim to fame. There's a lot of people who pretend they're celebrities in Alderley that maybe aren't celebrities. So I'll say that you don't see celebrities all the time there. Although actually, I did see in Wilmslow, which is like the next town over. So that's actually where my parents live. And I saw Tyson Fury filming something there once when I went to meet Hannah for lunch. So that was cool as well. That was my Yeah.
Well, I've got my own David Beckham story actually as well. I used to work in a pub in the Cotswolds, and he lives in the same village. So the whole family came down to the pub, and I was pouring them pints and having a little chat with them. He just walked in the door and was like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" Like I knew him my whole life. I was like, "Where did that come from?"
Wow. And did he seem like a good guy? He seems like quite normal, considering how.
Yeah, seemed that. Yeah, they all seem really nice. They were all really normal. Just everybody in the small pub looked at them the whole time.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is I actually have a David Beckham story.
Oh yeah.
When I was living in London, when I was 23, I was cycling my bike through the Kensington area, where all the beautiful like white sort of Victorian style houses are. And I cycling like a 1-speed bike, like the real hipster ones. And I was passing through a zebra crossing way too fast, and he stepped onto it, and I slammed on. I pedaled backwards, stopped myself. You're all right, mate. Just cross the road. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah, there's 3 David Beckham stories. Unbelievable. Okay, cool. So we got another question coming in. So question number 5, Testudo. It seems like there's more to this place than a convenient garage gym. It seems to hold great meaning for some of the men of the community. Can you share the role that it plays for you and some other men within the community?
Yeah. So, and also I should add women to that as well, because we do have female I suppose members is the wrong word, but I'll get into that. But female people as well. So yeah, Testudo is my parents' garage. So it was their garage until 2020, and when COVID happened, I kind of cleared out the garage and kind of painted it and things, and it started to slowly evolve from there. And yeah, the reason why we went for the name is Testudo means tortoise in Latin, and tortoises are a symbol of strength all over Italy. So if you go to, I remember being in Florence, I think it was, and if you look at the architecture, they often have tortoises carved at the corners of big public buildings. And they do that as if the tortoise has the building on its back, because it's a sign of strength. So I loved everything about that. I have a pet tortoise, and I love tortoises. So that was part of the reason why, going down that rabbit hole. But also the fact it was a symbol of strength was like, this is amazing for a gym name. Like, what else?
Yeah.
And then, in terms of the role it has, so it started off as me. My sister had just moved back from Edinburgh to Manchester with her husband, Johnny, as well. So they'd kind of moved into the area near my mum and dad's. And it started off as me and them basically doing some training in COVID together, because we were all kind of part of the same sort of household, same bubble, and just hang out and like spend some time with them. And then gradually it started to grow. So as the restrictions eased, we started to, see other people around, and kind of then our next door neighbor, that one of them came over. So Martin came over and started joining us. And then Victoria, his wife, joined us as well. And it grew sort of through each person's network. Kind of, they would add one or two more people in. So then we had kind of other people like James and Steve, Clive, who's my physio, who then started, he got some new patients, and he said, oh, they would actually love to come down. They're local. Would it be
Wow.
okay? I said, yeah. So then it kind of started to sort of grow and evolve. And it was because of that I actually went and did my PT qualifications so I could get insurance to cover the site. Because you couldn't get insured without the qualification, so you needed to be certified. So I went and did those to get insured, because I was training at all of the sessions. So it wasn't sort of open in the day. It would just be a case of, I would say, right, I'm training for 3 hours from 7 till 10 tonight or something.
Yeah.
People would jump in, but I would basically lead the session and coach them, as well as doing all my own stuff as well. And so I wanted some insurance. So I went and got that process underway. And then that started kind of furthering my own interest in, upskilling myself and understanding fitness. And through that, we kind of found more and more people to train with. So we kind of, the group sort of, I suppose it changed in size depending on how many people, not just are around at any given time, but people have like moved away since 2020 and things. So some of the guys we hung out with previously aren't there now. And then with Martin, so Martin is a member of the armed services community. So he's a retired officer after a medical discharge when he was shot in Afghanistan. And so he has a really incredible story. And through that, he set up a charity and foundation that works with injured people, some of whom are civilians, some of whom are ex-military personnel that have got some sort of disability, and that can be physical or mental. And he tries to get them into the outdoors to kind of improve their life, and also kind of help give them some confidence and things to take back into whatever it is that they're now doing, or whatever challenges they're now trying to overcome, whether that's day-to-day life or kind of getting back into work and getting back into a career. And so through that, that charity, I should say, is called the Adaptive Grandslam, because Martin is trying to become the first disabled person to do the Explorers Grandslam, which is the top mountain on every continent, plus the North and South Pole unsupported. And he's very nearly there now. So he's done most of them. But obviously they take, one, a lot of money and a lot of funding, and two, like a lot of planning and kind of sometimes you can get there and not summit. So he's been to Everest twice, for example, because the first time they didn't quite summit it, and then they had to go back to kind of get it ticked off. So and he'll take injured teams with him when he does those things. So there'll be other people on that team that are disabled for various reasons, and they will also go and do as much of the challenge as they can do, and they'll set goals, and it'll be all kind of properly managed.
That's amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. Yeah, and so I've met so many amazing people that have kind of changed my perspective on things through Martin and through his charity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how. So some of the stuff I've got on my Instagram is because Testudo is like a training base. So we've used that to train some of the members who are preparing for some of those expeditions and those challenges. So I got most recently they went and did the Tour Divide, which is actually a bike race that runs down the full length of the Rocky Mountains, so from Canada down to Mexico.
Okay.
Across North America. And they did that last summer, so kind of like early summer, sort of May to July. And they cycled it on mountain bikes. But some of the team, well, actually, I think maybe everyone in the team actually for that particular one had some form of kind of injury or background that meant that it was particularly challenging, even more so than it would be anyway as an able-bodied person. And I supported some of those team members who needed some additional training and kind of S&C support in the run up to that. So some of the stuff I've got on my Instagram is where we had kind of meet days where instead of doing it remotely, because they're all over the country, we'd kind of come together and use Testudo as a training base to try and give them some examples and ideas and things they could take back to their kind of day-to-day routines to help support their training, so they wouldn't get injured, so they'd be able to complete the challenge. And so sorry, coming back to your question, so it's basically I think Testudo is effectively a community gym. It's something where anyone who wants to have a crack at it, whether male or female, whatever their background, as long as they can get there and they're local, they can jump in, and they jump in with me, and you could be the best in the world at something, or you could just be, it's your first day and you're just learning how to get used to rowing and just really basic movements, ring rows, things like that. And we come in, we just work together and get fitter, and that's
so cool.
Really,
so cool. Yeah. I knew there was more to it, and that's why I asked the question. But I think the big learning lesson in that, as I was listening to it, is a lot of people don't start things because they don't think it's going to be as big as something else. Like, I'm not going to start my own gym because I'm not going to be as successful as that other personal trainer. I'm not going to start my own fitness class because I'm not as good. But like, even something that you start that can be as small as 1 or 2 people can truly have huge impacts and ripples like throughout. And like, if you weren't really focused too much on making this a huge success, you were just trying to provide a fitness training space for you and 1 or 2 others. And look what's happened. It's a whole community of people that have been injured, have lost their identity in life, have got to travel the world, achieve things they never thought they could, and so on and so forth. I think the big lesson in that is just start. No matter how small it is. I think that's a beautiful story. And I used to be in the sort of mountain climbing adventurous space myself, and I know how much funding is required for one person to go to Everest and to do these trips and to go to the North Pole and so on and so forth. But that must be an incredible blossoming charity to make that happen now. So that's really cool.
Yeah. AGS is incredible. It's well worth looking them up, because they've done some really impressive stuff.
We'll make sure to put their link down in the description for this episode.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah, that'd be amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's just repeat it again, so as I understand it. Did you say H&S?
Sorry, AGS. So Adaptive Grandslam is what the charity is called.
Adaptive Grandslam. We're going to put it in the link so you can go and support injured veterans and civilians achieve great things. Is that the ambition?
Exactly. Yeah. If you get, there's a short kind of movie on their website that
cool
goes into it. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, Lily, I'm going to ask this one. 2013. What happened? London. We had an 80-minute, then a 58-minute the same year. What was the story of those 2 races?
Sorry, 20.
Not 2013.
let's see what year it was. Have we look? So the year that you ran 120 in London, the next race that you done in London, you ran 58 minutes.
Oh, I think the 120 might be someone else, just with my name.
Maybe that's that Harry Thompson from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that maybe that's what's throwing it off. Yeah.
It is. That's what it is. So London 2024 at 120 at 166. So there's 2 Harry Thompsons. It's throwing off your high results.
That'll be it. That explains it.
You could have shared some amazing story there, Harry. You made up something incredible.
Okay, I can reframe that question, as that's a little bit of an error on my part. So Manchester in 2023, you raced 105. This might be the same thing again, but let's try it. So in Manchester 2023, you came 3rd. Is that correct?
To Afan and Graham.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Then after Manchester, you made a huge leap in your performance, where you started racing an hour and sub-hour quite consistently. Yeah. So what were the big changes in your life that you made to go from what was sort of not quite in the elites as of yet, the big 5-minute leap? What was it did you change within your training, within your mindset, and within your life to make that adjustment and now consistently be running at elite paces?
I think I was firstly incredibly upset about that particular performance in Manchester. So that came after I did Birmingham about 3 months before. That was about 1 hour and 3, I think, which at the time was a PB. So I'd gone slow, a couple of minutes slower than Birmingham. So I was really upset with that. So that I viewed that as like a unforgivably bad performance. And so one of the changes was kind of a mindset thing of, why hasn't it gone well? And effectively, I raced feeling a bit knackered from work, and just feeling like when I was in the race, I maybe didn't push as hard as I should have pushed. I didn't kind of really commit to suffering in the time that I was actually racing. So that was one, was sort of being more prepared to suffer and to suffer harder, both in training and in competition. Then for a training perspective, at the time I was still doing CrossFit competitions and HYROX competitions. So I was kind of doing both. So a lot of my time and effort was being spent trying to acquire new skills or refine skills for CrossFit. So Olympic weightlifting, complex gymnastics, the two things that kind of really I had to really kind of work at to kind of get a bit more dialed in. And so I was probably spending 50% of my time focusing on just the skills of those, and then the other 50% actually getting fitter and stronger and improving. And after that race, I sat down and had a chat with some people, including Martin actually, and about what was I trying to do? You know, what am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to do a bit of everything, which is fine? That's a great time. You know, crack on, keep doing exactly as you are. Or is this actually your sport? Is HYROX your sport? And the CrossFit stuff is, you know, going on the back burner. And I made that decision then that HYROX was going to be my sport, which just meant that my sessions, I started taking out some of that skill work and replacing it with some more strength and conditioning. And because time was such a precious resource for me alongside work, it was a case of once you actually take out, you know, 50% or like even if 40% leaves 10% there, then you have so much more time to dedicate to running was the big thing for me, but also, you know, some of the other movements, like looking at what your burpees doing, what's your sled push like, actually going into a bit more detail on a HYROX, more focused kind of style of training. So yeah, those are the big two changes. And then that yielded that London result sort of 3 months later.
I love it. Question 7, Lillie. You might want to skim over this one as he's touched on it quite a bit already. He couldn't help himself with tortoises.
Yeah, you obviously are a tortoise lover, as we can tell. Are there any other fun facts that we might not know about you?
What else? Well, I like a lot of animals. I also really love whales. And the reason for that is they're incredibly intelligent. So they have a part of their brain that humans don't even have that's dedicated entirely to empathy. And I just think that's amazing. And that's, so it builds really strong bonds with each other. And then that's what enables them to hunt very effectively. They look after one another. There's been examples of killer whale pods actually catching additional prey and giving it to disabled, like lone killer whales that kind of follow them around themselves. So they're sort of almost like philanthropic as well. So like I also have a fun fact about whales. It's probably my other fun fact.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. I find that really interesting.
You know, if Sean Noble is the bad guy of HYROX, I think you're the good guy of HYROX.
Yeah.
I think you're the good guy. In a sport of good guys, I'll add as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You seem like such a nice soul. Okay, cool. Question 8. Okay, this one's a little bit more focused. Last 10 years, you've achieved a lot within sport, ups, downs, everything in between. Let's fast forward 10 years. What do you hope to achieve? What would you have hoped to achieve?
I hope to have held a world record at some point. Not sure which division, but
official world record, not self-proclaimed British record holder for the 6 team. You know, official world record is the goal.
Yeah, official world record in HYROX at one of the, so just taking a category across all ages, and then being the top at that. So have held a world record at some point, even if it's for a day or half a day, and someone else breaks in. And to have been world champion. Again, same criteria. So across all age groups. So I've been world champion in my age group, which was great, but you have to put an asterisk next to your name, and I just want to, I suppose both of those things come back to the same desire, which is a bit more in my control, because obviously other people can influence all of those things. Which is, I want to have felt that I've completely taken my performance in this sport as far as I could physiologically have taken it with the time I've given to it.
Yeah.
And if I can't say that, then why? What have I done or not done that I should have done at the time, and why have I made that decision? And this is the big one for me. HYROX has been a second lease of life on my sports career. When I was looking for something to do post rugby that would kind of fill the void, I just wanted something to compete at, but it didn't need to be a high level. Tennis, I wasn't thinking of going to Wimbledon. I was thinking of playing a couple of local clubs and just like giving me a bit of a scratch that itch. But my career was where my energy was. And that's where all my focus was. Yeah. And I think rugby, I tried to take it as far as I did. And I look back and I look at particular decisions and moments, and I think I've made the wrong decision there. Like, lack of knowledge, inexperience, just bad luck sometimes, but also sometimes, knowing you're doing the wrong thing and still doing it. I want to look at my HYROX career and say, no, I haven't done that. And that's why I've taken a sabbatical from work, is because I wanted to be able to say I've done everything I could in that time to be the best in the world. And if it doesn't happen because my leg falls off, or I get sick on the day of the race, or something happens, then I can live with those things. But the things in my control, I want to absolutely maximize them, and see where I get to. And that's my real goal. Is 10 years from now, I look back on that and be able to say that and feel like then, okay, like I gave it my best crack and I'm done with it now. That's what I want to look at.
Yeah,
that.
Absolutely love the answer, and I just get so inspired by speaking to you guys, because you really are, like, right now at the very, not infancy of the sport, maybe not the right word, maybe toddler stage of the sport is the right word. But at the toddler age of the sport, some people are making huge life sacrifices to ensure that they put in their best version of themselves into the sport. And I think it's so inspirational. You're taking a sabbatical, you're going all in for the next year minimum, potentially rolling on to that. I just think it's so amazing. And you're already taking the measures necessary to look back in 10 years and go, I give it a good hard crack of the whip, in line with the opportunity that was rising. And I think it's commendable for yourself and many, many others. Okay, cool. So the last round, I'm going to hand over to Lillie. Is always a bonus round.
Yeah, so we do a bonus round, which is where the previous guest asks a question to the current guest, and then you will get to ask a question to the next one. So we have just had Pele on. How do you say his full name, Ryan?
Peleo.
And he said you are very strong on the sled. So how do you do it?
A lot of lower body strength work. So not necessarily just sleds, or not getting too bogged down into sleds. Actually thinking more about, look, my legs are stronger, then I'll move the sled better, and I can put more force into whatever the object is. If you changed it from sleds to a big sandbag that you've got to push, or something else, or something you've got to carry, if you've just got that lower body foundational strength, it'll transfer well. So yeah, lots of squatting, lots of kind of lower body deadlifting, those kind of exercises. Yeah.
It seems like the sled is the point, the sort of make it or break it point as well in HYROX, especially when people are starting out. Like, they get to the sled and that's the moment where you're going to carry on or you're not at a good level.
Yeah, no, I think so. And like, people then find, even if you can move it well, it's then, well, you're like sacrificing so much to move it well. Like, you get on that run, and if you've done it, say, in 2 minutes 15, great time, but then you get on the run and then you're like, you've dropped a minute because your legs are just kind of non-existent, then actually it's trying to strike that balance of, like, sometimes going faster and faster isn't actually a net gain. It's actually taking away more and more. Like, you have to be like, can I go 90% fast, but still then run back on a kind of same consistent? Because I think that's sort of where I am now with it, is I can move them fine. That's not a problem. But it's just like, let's not take too much out of the stations where you're going to need a bit more.
I love it. And our next guest on the podcast, who's on Monday, is Jess Petro, who was originally from Australia. She now lives on the east coast of the United States. Was there any question you'd like to ask Jess? So, a female elite 15 athlete.
Yeah, I'd love to know what her running splits look like, not in terms of the times, but in terms of how she splits her training through the week into, like, track-based, varying the surface, varying the kind of incline, decline, like more holistically looking at, like, how much variety is there, or is it like all on the treadmill, or is it all at like race pace? So, like, yeah, and how she breaks up her running through the week.
Good question.
And the last
And then the final part of this question is we like to sort of ask this question every time for someone who's doing a HYROX, say around like 90 minutes, and they want to shave off 10 minutes of their time. What would you recommend them doing?
So the easy answer is run more, but it depends on the athlete a little bit, because if you came into it like me, who was like a reasonable runner for a CrossFit kind of world, but I was probably still doing less than 3K a week, like maximum. Like 3K would be like, oh, you've done like Murph or something that week. So then there's a lot of mileage to be gained by running more frequently. You are going to kind of get a big improvement. But now there's a lot of people coming to HYROX who are finding it through their running. So they're already actually really competent runners, and it's some of the other stuff they're not good at. And if for that type of individual, and like I think of this with some of the female clients at the gym that I coach at the moment, is I sort of think a lot of them are actually really good runners. They can run a 5K under 30 minutes. They're well above average, relative to the population, but they maybe don't squat at all in their week. So I'd actually say adding some kind of basic squatting and getting that really dialed in, just so like you move well, you build some strength in those muscles. It's a compound lift, so you're getting the benefits sort of all around your body, not just in your legs. Would yield some really good results. So kind of, sorry, two answers, but yeah, run more if running's not your thing, but if running is, squat more.
This is actually one thing I'm really interested in, like seeing with elite HYROX, is the runners coming in versus maybe the CrossFit athletes coming in who are more strength biased, and seeing how they kind of come together and match up over like maybe the next few years. It's something that I'm interested in seeing what the results are.
Yeah, I like me too. I think it's super interesting, because I think it's a case of, your runners might have a VO2. People talk about VO2 max all the time, and they might have a VO2 max that's like way higher. Maybe they're like in the like high 70s or something for some of these guys and girls. Whereas you look at someone who's carrying a bit more mass, like I'm probably going to be one of the heaviest guys lining up next Friday, maybe the heaviest. Like hopefully we'll see, but like I'm going to be around there. But then it's a case of, but am I, where's my ceiling? Is it so my VO2 max is lower, in terms of your, because it calculates by your body weight, so it looks objectively lower. But if my absolute output is higher, then, and I can sail at that closer to that limit, then that might be better. And to look at CrossFit, a good example of this, it's a good example of CrossFit is Katja Davistetti. So she won the CrossFit Games twice. Probably a similar stage when CrossFit was in its toddler years, as you said, Ryan. Probably what HYROX is now, like 2013, 14, that kind of period was when she really broke through. And she was known for being able to basically squat 8 reps at like 98% of her 1 rep max. She could crush reps at really, really high percentages across lots of different movements, and she could do that in different workouts, different movements. But whenever she got to 1 rep max, she'd be way down. She'd be near the kind of back of the pack. And I think we're going to see this with HYROX, but just looking at it, as you say, Lily, through the kind of lens of like running versus other stuff, where you've got some of the bigger athletes, but they're right on that limit of like, they haven't got any more. If you ask them to run flat out, they actually couldn't go that much quicker fresh, but they can repeatedly be right on that kind of line. And then you've got other people whose ceiling is going to be way higher. They're running sub 240 for a K, and they could do that 8 rounds if they had a minute's rest. But you chuck them in a race, and now they're at 325, and they're really struggling. And that's going to be the interesting thing to see. Is it going to bias towards those people whose ceiling is higher, or is it going to bias more towards heavier people whose ceiling is maybe a bit lower, but their floor is really high? And they could just be like right at that, bang, right on their limit the whole time. I think right now there's a mixture of that in the field.
I definitely think so, and I think we're going to see a pretty good showcase of the different body types at Las Vegas, even in the men's lineup, and the females lineup. If you think about the body type of Joanna versus Lauren Weeks, the two favorites, two very, very different athletes. One long, rangy, The other one's short, compact, more muscular. I'm not sure if Lauren did CrossFit, but I'm sure she did just by looking at her type of physique, more muscular. But we'll see how it all plays out. So with Vegas in mind, we're asking every athlete that's on the podcast this week for a prediction for the males and females top 3, if you don't mind.
Yes, sure. So on the men's side, I'll have to predict myself in the top 3.
I love it.
Yeah, not doing so would be negative energy. So yeah, so I'm going to put myself in there. I think you'll see James there as well. James. And then who else? It'll be interesting. I'm going to say Dylan Scott for the other spot. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, also very different athletes there. So exactly what we were saying. And then on the ladies' side, I've not seen the official list yet of everyone come out, but I think it's hard to. So Joanna and Lauren, I would not bet any money against either of them. So I would put both of those right at the top. And then Megan is also
Megan Jacoby.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. I didn't think she was. So then I think so I think it's probably going to be. It might be like Zara's racing, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think some of the stuff she's been like, I've seen her putting out like workout wise and stuff on social media. I think would put her up in that kind of top echelon. But I think it'd be hard to say. But I'd say Lauren and Joanna would be like my kind of ones that if I was betting money, I'd be betting one of them to take the win. But then I think like Zara, I think we're very close basically. Once you hit third to kind of 7th, 8th, it would be super tight. Whereas with the men's, I think there'll be more stratification between them. The top 3 will be top 3 to 4 will be very tight, and I think it'll kind of spread out a bit.
Interesting. You didn't have Hunter or Ryan Kent in your top 3 on the males who are racing. That's interesting. On the female side, I'd put really good money that our girl Amy Bevilacqua be in that top 3. She's a dog.
Do you think?
Yeah,
I've not met a lot of the female athletes. So
she's
I'm looking forward to
51 years old, and she's going into this ranked. I'm not 100%, maybe 8th or 9th.
9th, I think 9th.
Like, she's a beast of an athlete. She's got 7 kids. Just doesn't give a shit. Just all in every race.
She's a beast.
Yeah, she's
That's epic.
Yeah, that's really epic. But listen, Harry, at this point, we hand over to you. It's free real estate to share. How can people get in touch with you? Do you have any sponsors you'd like to announce or charities? Is there any sponsors you'd like to reach out to? Are you open for sponsors? Like, this is your time to shine.
Once that plane's gone over.
So I'm quite close to the airport here.
I can hear.
Yes. You can reach out to me on Instagram. I have recently become a lot more engaged on Instagram, which is great. So it's HP Thompson 32 is my handle. And I'm putting stuff out pretty regularly on there all the time. I am open to sponsorship. I only have one sponsor at the moment, and that is PhysioFit Cheshire, which is a physio company based in Manchester, in and around Manchester. They've got a few different locations, and they're fantastic. They focus on sports physio, but they also do kind of all-round general stuff as well. But they've been absolutely fantastic, and I've worked with them through my long rugby injury list, and they've always got me back on the pitch every single time. So awesome. They're really good guys there. PhysioFit Cheshire. And then in terms of charities, massive shout out to Adaptive Grandslam or AGS. Find them on social media and online. Just well worth have a look at some of their content. The stuff they do is amazing, and you can get involved with them not just from a donations perspective, but they do open some of their events up for members of the public just to join, and so you can go and go hiking on a weekend in the Lake District, with them, and sort of hang out and hear some stories and things.
Amazing. I'm definitely link up with those guys. That sounds awesome. Sounds right up my street.
Yeah, no, they are amazing. So definitely worth looking at them, Ryan, given your mountaineering kind of background. And then in terms of companies I would love to work with, basically anyone whose products I use. So I use some Elite Health Span stuff for some of my race day nutrition and things. I have been running in a variety of different shoes this year because I keep breaking them, which and then I keep replacing them with different ones, trying different things out. So at the moment, I'm running an Adidas Adi Pros, and they'll probably be what I'll be wearing next week. But I do recommend Saucony as well. So I have a pair of them for trail shoes, which are fantastic. I love them for my training shoes, which are their speed ones. But it's just the top end shoes, the kind of shelf life on them is not very good. So on the Elite, just the kind of grip and stuff. It just I don't know if it's because I'm heavy and because I probably run inefficiently, but it just breaks them quite quickly. And then you have to I own good offers basically, and I'm due to quite source of funds.
Okay, cool. Listen, Harry, thank you so much. I think we're probably just short of an hour there. We always try and aim for 50 minutes, but you had so many interesting tortoise and whale facts. A little bit over. But hopefully we've done a good job at letting people understand who you are a little bit better. From myself and Lillie, I just want to thank you for this time. I know it's precious time that you're giving up to us at this point. We're excited to cheer you on. We're so excited for the major this week. And if there's anything that we can do to help support you as an athlete, we will certainly do it. In fact, after I end this recording, I've got some ideas for you already, which I'll share with you quickly, okay? But thanks very much, Harry. I'm going to stop the recording now, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.